What's going on, everyone? Hope you're doing well today. Now let's talk about Cardi B, because if headlines were trophies, she'd be collecting them right now. Her relationship with Stefon is already being labeled by some fans as the biggest relationship flop of 2026. Stefon arrived on the scene with confidence, reminding everyone exactly who he thinks he is. But the internet? The internet is not convinced. Opinions are flying in from every direction, and some fans are saying, "Relax, they'll be fine, allow them, and let them sort it out. Those accusations are fake anyway." Others aren't holding back at all, asking how Cardi could possibly end up with someone they believe is even worse than Offset, if that's even imaginable. A new blind item has surfaced, and it completely reframes the conversation. According to whispers online, Stefon may not just be a boyfriend. Some people are claiming he could be acting as Cardi B's handler. Yes, you heard that right. Before you dismiss it, listen closely. The blind item raises questions about Stefon's connection to Cardi's label and the way he positions himself as someone who wants to heal her. On the surface, it sounds supportive. But beneath that, some believe Cardi may be getting used from both sides, emotionally and professionally. So now the big question is this. Is this really a love story gone wrong? Or is Cardi B caught in a carefully managed situation disguised as romance? And that's where this blind item really starts to raise eyebrows. Because when you strip away the romance and the social media optics, the industry question isn't, is she happy? It's who benefits? This is a global superstar we're talking about. Brand deals, endorsements, tour sponsorships, carefully managed public perception. Labels don't just allow chaos around a top-tier artist without a reason. According to the blind item, this relationship checks every box a major label would usually run from. Legal issues, non-stop controversy, complicated personal history, and optics that would normally trigger emergency meetings in a corporate boardroom. So why isn't that happening here? Why isn't anyone stepping in? That's where things get uncomfortable. The blind suggests the label may see this relationship not as a liability, but as leverage. Drama drives headlines, and headlines drive streams. Streams drive revenue. And as long as the chaos keeps her name trending, everyone behind the scenes keeps winning, except, potentially, the artist herself. What's even more unsettling is the idea that Stefon isn't just tolerated, but strategically positioned. The blind hints that he may serve as a buffer, a controller, or even a distraction, someone close enough to influence her decisions while keeping her emotionally dependent during a vulnerable period. So now the narrative shifts. This may not be about bad choices in love at all. It may be about power, control, and profit disguised as protection. And if that's true, the biggest risk here isn't public backlash. It's what happens when an artist realizes she's being managed in her personal life the same way she's managed in the studio. And that's the part that makes people in the industry uneasy. Because when a label suddenly starts praising a relationship they would normally shut down immediately, you have to ask why. They're selling it to her as grounding or stability, as proof she's finally healed and focused. But behind closed doors, it looks less like emotional growth and more like operational efficiency. According to the blind item, once this man came into the picture, everything shifted in a way that just happened to benefit the business. She became more compliant, more predictable, and easier to manage. Deadlines were now met. Projects moved forward without resistance. The friction that once slowed things down is now gone. And here's where it gets uncomfortable again. Some insiders believe the label doesn't care who the man is, as long as he keeps her calm, contained, and productive is good for them. Because a quiet artist is a profitable artist. The blind doesn't say she's being controlled outright. It suggests something more subtle, influence disguised as support. Encouragement that always seems to align with the label's needs and reassurance that conveniently benefits everyone except the person at the center of it all. This isn't about whether the relationship looks bad online. It's about whether peace is being prioritized or obedience. And if the people telling her this is healthy are also the ones cashing the checks, then you have to wonder whose healing really matters here. Because from a corporate standpoint, this isn't exploitation, it's efficiency. The label doesn't see a woman in a relationship. They see a system that's finally running smoothly. The chaos has been minimized and the output has been maximized. And whatever personal cost comes with that, it doesn't show up on a balance sheet. The blind suggests this is how the industry really works at the highest level. Not with contracts alone, but with emotional management. You don't have to fight a star who's exhausted. You don't have to negotiate with someone who's constantly occupied. You don't have to argue with an artist who's been convinced this version of herself is healthier. And that's why no one steps in. There is no interventions at all. No red flags raised publicly by her brands and management, because as long as the machine is producing, the machine is considered stable. The man isn't viewed as a liability. He's now part of the infrastructure. What makes this especially unsettling is how familiar the pattern is. We've seen it before with other powerful women in entertainment. The moment they become easier to manage, the industry applauds their growth. The moment they push back, they're labeled unstable, difficult, or ungrateful. So if this blind item is even partially true, the relationship isn't just personal, it's transactional now. He serves a purpose. And once someone serves a purpose in this industry, their presence is tolerated, protected, even encouraged, no matter how messy they look from the outside. Which leads to the real danger. Now what happens if that solution stops working? What happens if she wakes up, reclaims her power, and starts saying no again? Because history tells us the industry doesn't reward women for remembering who they are, it punishes them. And that's why this story isn't really about him at all. It's about a system that would rather manage a woman than protect her. Because nothing about this situation looks explosive. There's no public breakdown or scandal big enough to force intervention. And that's exactly why it works. The system doesn't need her broken. It needs her functional, calm, and productive. What makes it so unsettling is how gentle it all appears. There's no visible villain here. Just encouragement that always aligns with business interests. People around her can sense it, but can't point to a single abusive moment or controlling outburst as evidence. They just notice that her edges are gone and the fire is contained nicely. The resistance has softened into nice compliance. She's maybe still powerful, but only in ways that are useful to others. This is exactly how it's about control through comfort. When someone makes you feel safe while quietly guiding every direction you move, you don't feel trapped, you feel grateful. So when the industry says she's healed, what they really mean is she's manageable. When they say she's in love, what they mean is she's aligned. And when they celebrate this chapter of her life, they're not celebrating her happiness, they're celebrating her availability. Now, again, this is just a blind item. Nothing here is confirmed. But if even half of it is true, it raises an uncomfortable question we've seen play out before in entertainment. When a powerful woman finally settles down, just for the camera's. And the fact that Cardi B, a superstar girlfriend, elevates his status overnight. He gets sudden endorsements deals, access, visibility, and close proximity to power, which makes it alarming. Because suddenly Cardi is everywhere they need her to be. Games, brand moments, international performances, high-risk and high-reward markets. Even with the Saudi performance. That was so fast. The tour dates is also locked in, and the album rollout moving full speed ahead. And remember the language being used. He healed me. And Stefon Diggs replied, "Let me heal you." That framing matters. Because healing implies trust and surrender. That is letting someone guide you when you're vulnerable. And that's why people are whispering the same word over and over again. Stefon is the handler. Not because Cardi lacks intelligence or agency, but because influence doesn't require weakness. It only requires timing. From the where I sit, it starts to feel like she's operating from a place of emotional armor, proving she's unbreakable, richer, bigger, stronger, and more successful than ever, especially to Offset. And then the grind becomes the proof with the nonstop work as the message. But here's where the concern really sets in. She performed internationally less than 6 weeks postpartum and preparing to leave 4 children, 2 of them babies, to go on tour. And instead of anyone asking, why now? It's being framed as strength, resilience, and a superstar with energy. Yes, Cardi is strong. No one is denying that. But strength doesn't mean you never stop. And healing doesn't usually look like running your body and spirit into overdrive immediately after giving birth. So the question people are asking isn't about her capability, it's about the pressure. Because everyone around her is winning. The label, the brands, the platforms, and even the partner, Stefon Diggs. I'm honestly surprised more people aren't talking about this. Like, am I the only one noticing it? What do y'all think? Because there has to be a reason it feels like Cardi's label and everyone in her circle are all saying, "Yo, this man is really good for you." while the rest of us are sitting here like, sis, what is actually going on? Now, I'll give credit where it's due. Cardi is finally locked in. She's productive, she's putting out work, and the output is real. But the big question is, at what cost? Does anybody care what happens if she eventually burns out? Anyway, you'll let me know what you think in the comments. I'll catch up with you later. Bye.